All right, it's fine.
Okay. Nachaida, please introduce yourself.
Okay, my name is Nachaida Chidama. I base in Adamawa State in Nigeria. So I'm a humanitarian. I've worked with different organizations. Presently, I work with Plan International, the Nivea project that has to do with gender-based violence. So we deal basically with violence against women and girls, which happens quite a lot here. So we record these cases and we see how we can help these survivors of violence, whether they are kids, whether they are adults. We try to find ways of speaking with them. We offer them psychosocial support services, counseling services, and we also empower them the best way that we could. So basically, that's the line that I've been in for quite a while, maybe over 5 years right now in Nigeria.
Wonderful. Thank you. Welcome, and thank you for meeting with us and talking about your work. Um, so, uh, can you please give us a sense of what a day, what a particular day for you looks like? If you walk us through what you do um, in a typical day, and maybe even ground it in a case that you're working with right now that's specific to violence against minors.
All right. So we have a safe space, like we work in different communities. In the states where I work, is Adamawa State. You might have heard of it in the news or not, because we've been in the news for quite a lot. We've had a series of issues regarding insurgencies and all that. So my organization work in 8 locations across the state, and I happen to manage one of the safe spaces in the community, in the local, one of the local communities. So there is a safe space built there within the community. And then we in a typical day, we normally do sensitizations. We also have community-based protection groups that we formed within the community that help to identify these cases that we deal with that has to do with either rape, sexual assault, physical abuse, female genital mutilation, whatever kind of abuse that has to do with the girl child. Basically, the project has to do with women and girls, this particular one that we do. So we have a safe space that is strictly for just women and girls. So we do sensitization and awareness in order to make them know what we do in the community, our role. So in this safe space, I happen to be the case worker in the safe space. So they meet me if they have any issue, and you receive series of cases. For instance, one of the recent case I worked on is has to do with a rape survivor, a young adolescent girl of about 14 years old. The both parents were separated. The mother fell sick and she sent her to be with the dad. And the dad was molesting the girl. He's been sleeping with her. So when they discovered she was pregnant, that was when her family started asking questions, and they realized that the father, that's her biological father, was the one responsible for the pregnancy. So when the girl came, she was devastated and she was troubled and all. So they brought her to me. So when she met me, normally they do meet us, but they normally come through. Sometimes they find it difficult to come directly because you have to build trust and all that. So they can meet a reliable person, someone they trust. Her sister actually brought her to me because the sister stays in the community. So when they brought her to me, at first she wasn't opening up. But because we are professionals and we were trained to know how to get this information and how to help them feel relaxed and open up, we happened to have an extensive discussion. And then when she was able to trust me, she opened up to what was happening to her and all that. And the dad was doing that on the basis of, because she was passionate about school and her mom could not afford it. And the dad said, okay, he'll pay her school fees. That was why they sent her to the dad in another state within the country. So the dad said the only way he can send her to school is if she agrees to be sleeping with him. So when she met me, she said she's passionate about school and nobody can afford it. That's her sister can't afford it, her mom can't afford it. So they are looking for ways we can help them. And I also realized she's traumatized because if you look at her, she's always moody, normal behaviors that are concurrent with survivors of all those kind of violence. So we walked through counseling sessions, psychosocial support services, and then at that time my organization was limited because we were not having that we don't have the opportunity of sending them to school. But I had to take it up and I looked for other organizations within the community that offer similar services. That's we linked her up to services because that's one of my job as the caseworker, linking the survivors to gender to like services that my organization was limited in offering, was limited at. So like that. Gradually, she picked up. We also have psychosocial sessions, like life skill sessions. And then, if there is a challenge with the parents, we enroll them in parenting sessions in order to teach them how to go about, or the caregivers, in order to teach them how to like cope with these children. Because most times, these children become withdrawn, they pick up attributes that the caregivers don't relate with, and you find out that they don't understand what these children are going through. So what we do in these parenting sessions for caregivers or for parents is we teach them how to work with these children, how to stay with them. They have to understand that these children are traumatized. You don't expect normal behaviors you will get from other children and all those things. And we have a lot of these cases here because you realize, like from my location, most of the cases you even find cases of rape, all those kind of this thing. We have physical abuse as well, but you see these cases of rape, denial of resources. You realize that parents will be like, because of the level of poverty around here, you see a lot of parents cannot afford to take their children to school. And then, okay, maybe the dad, based on his own source of income, because like I said, economical issue is a challenge here in Nigeria. So maybe a dad has like 5 children and he cannot afford to take everyone to school. He'll be like, okay, maybe there are 3 girls and 2 boys, or there are 2 boys and 3 girls. He'll be like, okay, he'll send the male to the boys to school, and the girls, they'll end up marrying them off. This is another violence on its own because we register it under either forced marriage or early marriage. So he'll say, okay, he can't afford to train them to school and he don't want to keep them, in his own words, wasting away. So he decides to just marry them off to anybody. And you realize that most of the people they are even marrying them off to, number one, they are illiterate. Number two, they can hardly take care of them. At the end of the day, they get these girls pregnant with kids and then they abandon them. They don't feed them. They don't take them to school because they are hardly even educated themselves for some of them. And then these girls, at the end of the day, some of them might even be divorced. They will just send the children back because at the end of the day, they feel like they are liabilities to them. So it's just like cycling another issue because the dad or the parents might have feel, okay, I've married them off, so I'm okay. After a year, two, sometimes even 5 years, these children get divorced by their husbands or their partners, and then they end up sending them back to the parents. So most times we try to sensitize parents on the negative effects or negative impact of this, and we try to see how we can help the girls. So sometimes we either send these girls back to school, enroll them in what is it called? We enroll them in IGA activities, and social generating activities that can help them stand on their feet and help them so that they can be able to take care of themselves. Because most of them, are such happy, they feel like life is over, life has that's all that. So we provide them with all this.
We're losing
Sorry.
you a bit, Nachaida. Yeah,
Can
I've
you
lost your sound a bit.
Oh,
so I mean your passion I sense your passion for the work that you do through the screen. And so this is a privilege because you are the very first person that we're speaking to from Nigeria. So if it's okay, if you can help us understand the context in Nigeria a little bit. So one, are you in a rural or urban location within Nigeria? Where are you particularly working in?
Okay, I work in a rural location.
Okay. Okay. And
Yeah.
and and
Yes, yes.
and so the system in Nigeria, so we've spoken to people from Kenya and other uh, um, countries within Africa. Can you explain to us how the child protection system works in Nigeria? Can you explain it to us, and then how you fit into that system?
Okay. Basically, the child protection system in Nigeria, mostly you understand that is humanitarian organizations that normally put that particular motion in place. Our government try, but the law system in Nigeria is honestly more theoretical than practical. But in terms of what we do, when we identify these children that are facing all these kind of challenges, we link them to services, like I said. So what do we do from here? What does this child, first of all, we look, what does this child need? And then we sit with the child. That's if the child is of consensual, like if he can speak or she can speak for herself, maybe around 15, 16, 17, these people actually sometimes know what they want. So they will tell us, I want justice. So we link them to our legal services. We have different sectors that are in charge of all these things. And then sometimes you realize that the perpetrators of this violence are actually the caregivers themselves. So we have like shelters, we have like safe houses. But because of the challenges we normally see around safe houses, and because most of our projects, that's humanitarian organizations, are funded by international organizations and sometimes individual donors, mostly foreign donors. We have limited time. Maybe a project, they can give us, okay, we're going to sponsor you on protection and it's going to last maybe for just 2 years, 3 years. And when we leave, there is a challenge because the government doesn't take over from where we stop. For instance, now if we have safe houses, right, where these children that are unaccompanied will have nowhere to go, they don't have anyone to actually take care of them. If we take them to these safe houses, and then let's say the project that maintains these safe houses concludes in like 3 or 4 years, what happens to the child after that? If it's in maybe a working country, if I can use that word, the government can take over from there. Where the humanitarian organizations stop, the government can keep putting in funds to support these children and take it up from there. But in a country like Nigeria, that hardly happens. So if it's humanitarian organizations, if they start, they have to keep on doing that. So we mostly don't encourage taking those kind of children to safe houses. So what we do is we try to identify which other caregiver within the family cycle can actually take care of this child. Who does the child trust? So we sit with them and ask, apart from these caregivers that you know, which other trusted family member do you know that you can live with or that can stay with you and all that? So we try to identify in order to like link them up. Okay, the next question is, can this family member accept taking care of him or her? Because in Nigeria, taking care of somebody else is an issue. You realize that the family the child is even going to can hardly feed themselves or take care of the members of the family. How much more another person? So we look into it. How can we send this child to this particular person and not make him or her a liability, in order so that in trying to avoid problems, we don't end up creating more problems. for these children. So we try to see how we can do, maybe take care of their education, but we not mostly we focus on maybe primary, secondary school. That's like the elementary basis. I don't know what system works for you people, but mostly primary, secondary, because we can't take care of them up to tertiary level. Like the cost is something that is unbearable. So what we do is we enroll them in life skill in sorry, we empower them with skills that can help them. What are they passionate about? Is it tailoring? Like the marketable skills around here, we enroll them, we train them, we join them to master trainers, and we pay these master trainers through the course of the learning process till they can learn and stand on their own, so that we'll tell them, okay, why we're empowering you with this skill is so that you can take care of yourself. And they need to know that we won't be here forever. So that when we are not here, you will not become a liability to the people that you're going to be living with and all that. And the challenge normally comes when these children we're talking about are actually children and not maybe like teenagers, like let's say 5 years, 3 years, and all that. So this particular set of people, you can actually teach them skills. They cannot assimilate it. So what we do is we try to like empower the parents themselves. So, but not all projects do that. Sometimes we're limited there because you realize, and maybe the donor requirement is we can only empower the children themselves, and they don't give us room to empower the parents. So sometimes this can pose a challenge because we cannot see to it to the finish, right?
Right.
So all we can do is look for where the child can stay and be good, but there are limitations to what we can offer them and all those. Yeah,
So
so we have different organizations that actually offer similar services around, but the time limitation, we're limited because we're funded and we're given a time frame to
Nachaida,
deliver.
a few questions to get clarity, because a lot of what you're saying would be completely foreign to Tracy and I, or our colleagues in the West. So
Okay.
this is fascinating because our systems function differently. Am I to understand that in Nigeria, there is no government body that is mandated to deliver child protection services? It's all left to NGOs and other social services, private funded services?
Well, just like I said, maybe like the Ministry of Women Affairs or Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I don't know, all those ministries, they will tell you, yes, they offer that service. But I think the best you can do is, if we have abandoned children in Nigeria, the best they can do is go and drop them in an orphanage, which is being handled by the government.
Okay, so the service that we'd offer is an orphanage by government, but they would not offer the services that you do as a private institution.
Yeah.
Got
These
it.
services, yes. So
Okay.
we even have social services that most times during coordination meetings and all that, they tell us to refer these cases to. But you realize that even the social services that work with the government, they end up referring cases to us. So during our training, during our trainings and mentoring sessions, we even invite them. That's the social services, state social services. We invite them into our trainings in order to empower them with knowledge, because you realize that they are just sitting in their offices and they are not even doing anything. So when they have complex issues, they send them back to us. So it is there, just like I said in the beginning, when it concerns our like government issues, is more theoretical than actually practical. You have more of this service delivery from like humanitarian organizations than from the government.
So Nachaida, does Nigeria have has Nigeria instituted or on the books, are there child protection laws or statutes that protect children? Sorry, did I lose you?
Yes.
Okay. You're hearing me now. Are in
Yes,
Nigeria, are there laws, child protection laws?
hmm. Well, there are child protection laws, but you know the problem is I don't know if you have knowledge, like lots of information about Nigeria, but Nigeria is categorized into 36 states, right? So most of those services, you will get them maybe in like the capital, that's Abuja,
Okay.
than, yes, than other states, like the Bay states, like all those Adamawa states, all those where you even have humanitarian organizations like in their numbers, states like Adamawa State, Borno State, Yobe State, where insurgency has eaten deep into it. And people don't even like coming. So, in fact, humanitarian organizations are the ones that have come to salvage it. We have child protection laws that work in certain states, but not all states.
I
There are
hear you.
states that, yes, when you try to speak, like when you try to even talk about it, you sound foreign to them. But there are states that it works. Just like I said,
Mhm.
like the capital and some of those states around the capital, yes.
Nachaida, just a quick question from me then. Because Avi's right, we're trying to vision what it's like where you work. And you've mentioned community a number of times, the community that you work in. Can you give us a bit of a sense of what you mean by the community, so we can visualize where you work?
Okay. So there is a country, there is a state, right? Within the state, within the country, there is a capital. Within the states, so within the states too, there is a capital, right? I don't know if it works for you people like that. For instance, I'm from Nigeria, and the capital of Nigeria is Abuja, right? We have 36 states in Nigeria. I'm from Adamawa State, and the capital of Adamawa State is Yola. So Yola is like urban here. We have other villages under Yola. So when I say community, it's more like village, right? So there are villages under the state in Adamawa State. So there is a country, 36 states, and these 36 states all are divided into like different villages and all that. Like in the Adamawa State where I work, we have 21 local governments. So apart from the Yola itself, which is the capital of the state, there are 21 local governments under the state. And each of these local governments have villages under it. So most of these interventions we do come to those villages that have needs of our services. So they normally have a research and they realize that, okay, this village needs this and this intervention. You can even go to a village in this state that doesn't have a hospital, that doesn't even have a road where like a good road that cars can pass. You have to either use bike, bicycle, or all those means of transportation. There are even villages within the states that are not even accessible during certain seasons, like the rainy seasons. So, like that. So, some of these communities is as if they don't even have government functioning there. Most of the time, government intervention ends within the capital of the state. It hardly
And,
gets to rural areas.
and is there a time, Nachaida, that you're not welcome in certain villages? I mean, I'm just thinking if you found out from somebody that a girl had been raped, like you said, or and you went to go and help, are there times when you're prevented from going into places, or are you seen as people that are welcomed with open arms and come in and help us? What's the relationship like with the villages and the people that you serve?
Well, here we're normally welcome, like we're normally open, and well, what happens is You don't just go into these villages. There are a series of steps. There is what we call community entry and sensitization. So the first thing you do before entering any community of intervention or any village of intervention is you have to, there like every village have its own heads, have its leaders. We can call them kings or the local names we give to their leaders, right? So when you want to go and like offer an intervention in those villages, the first thing you do is you start from the capital. When, for instance, now let's say we have an individual donor. Let's say now you want to help Nigeria and you're going to help Nigeria. Okay, you want to help a village in Adamawa State. You might want to do it through an organization. You look around for like NGOs that offer this kind or are well grounded in this kind of service you want to like offer help. So you start from the capital in Nigeria, that's Abuja. When you introduce it, they'll bring it down to Adamawa State. So when they bring it to Adamawa State, we involve our government. They know about, okay, there is also projects we want to do within the states. From the government, you go down to the community level. So in every community, before you enter, you do community entry, like I said. You greet the leaders, you tell them, okay, we have seen this and this need in this community, and we found good and generous people that said, okay, they want to help. Probably I just posted about a village on LinkedIn and then you saw it and then you're interested in helping. So I can explain to them, they just saw it online and they feel they are moved to help this community. So we introduce the project to them and we tell them what it's all about. We'll tell them who would like to work in the community, this and this and this is what we want to do. So if they have an understanding of what you want to do, there won't be a problem. And because we have a lot of NGOs around here that have helped and that people have seen their work, especially during the insurgency I mentioned, where a lot of people are displaced. Like we have a whole area, thousands of people had to leave their communities. They were burnt down, they were destroyed. So they had to like move to other places. NGOs were the ones that offered help, like immediate help, building shelter houses, building IDP camps, and all those things. So because they know they know NGOs a lot here, and they know that most of these funds don't come from the government. Because when you mention government, sometimes the community will not even take you serious because of how much we know our government does all those things and that. So when you introduce yourself and they know about the project, you won't have a problem functioning there. They will give you all you need. They will give you the support you need, yes. And then you go on with your recruitment, whether you want to do a community recruitment or you want to do your normal recruitment and then bring the person into the community. You won't have any issue regarding that.
Wow. Okay, so while you were talking, I pulled up a map of Nigeria and I'm looking at where you're
Okay.
at. I'm looking at where you're at.
Do you want to
So,
share it? Do you want to share it on screen? Can you share it on screen?
oh, yeah. It says, let me
This
try
is
and do that.
fascinating, Nachaida, by the way.
So here's Yola. Do you see Yola there on the
Yes.
border with Cameroon, right?
Yes.
There it is. Okay, so this is where Nachaida you're at. Well, you're not in Yola.
Yes.
You said you're in the province of Adamawa, but Yola is the capital, and you're okay. So it's on the border. You're on the border with Cameroon, close to the border, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But if you want to understand where I am better, I think you should pull up the Adamawa map. So search for the map of Adamawa State.
I'll do that. I'll do that while you answer this other question. So
Okay.
Nachaida, you mentioned paying for school. So again, these are a few questions. This is the first time we're speaking to someone from Nigeria. So these are some technical questions that are important for the audience to understand. When you say parents cannot afford school, does that mean that all grades you have to pay for all grades, zero to even zero to high school? You have to pay for school?
Yes, yes. Most times what because you realize that you can see a child of 15 years old have never entered school. Like all through their lifespan, they have not gone to school at all. So if you want to like send these children back to school, sometimes sending them back at that age is even difficult. But if they want to, you can. However, you might just decide to like, okay, enroll them in skill acquisition programs and all that. But if you want to like assist, sometimes we focus on the school dropouts that are passionate about it, but it's just that there's no funds to continue. So what we do is we check where they stopped and then we see how we can help.
So
Yes.
so so people have to pay from grade one all the way through high school in Nigeria. Parents have to pay for their kids to go to school. There's no government funded schools.
Well, there are government funded schools, but not, I can't say government funded, but it's just that it's subsidized. But parents
Subsidized.
have to like play a part. Yes, parents have
I
to play a part.
Okay, so here's a map of your state,
Adamawa State, yes.
Adamawa State. So where are you? Is this Rufor?
Yola South. This is Fofore. So if you had an extensive map that shows all the communities around Yola South, that's where you will have found me.
On Yola
So,
South. So you're around Yola
yes,
South. I see, around here.
yeah,
Okay, got it.
yes.
Um, so so the reason I pulled up the map was we've heard from our Kenyan colleagues that during you talked about some issues that have happened within Nigeria where people are displaced. Do you also experience individuals coming from Cameroon into Nigeria because they're displaced, or is this mostly a Nigerian within an internal issue of displacement?
Well, I think more of Nigerians went into Cameroon rather
Okay.
than Cameroon coming in, yes, during the displacement, because we shared a border with them. And the incident happened in an area in Mubi, mostly Mubi, Michika axis. That was where the insurgency happened. So people that could not flee into Yola, that's the capital of the state, they felt Cameroon was closer, so they moved into Cameroon.
I see.
Because at
Okay.
that point, it's difficult for Cameroonians to even enter because where they are entering through is actually where the insurgency was happening.
So the insurgency was an issue within Nigeria. Understood. Understood. And then you spoke about, so if we go back now to the child protection, thank you for answering those questions. It gives us context. When you speak of child protection, and we've heard this before, where culturally girls are married young, because of you said the father can't afford, but we've heard from others where they're married young because it's culturally accepted and it's part of their beliefs. Is that also something you find is that part of, I mean, there's so many communities within Nigeria. Are there so many different cultures that people are in? Like how do you, are there cultures where they believe girls do need to be married young?
Yes, especially where I base, Adamawa State, the northern state of Nigeria, is very common to see them marry off girls at a very young age. Like the Fulanis at 13 years old, you see a girl being married off. It's culturally accepted. The Hausas too do that. Like in fact, is a very acceptable norm over here for girls to be married early. In fact, that's why we inculcate sensitizations and awareness into our programs in order to show them the effects of marrying girls at a very young age, in order to discourage those culture and like they abuse their minds from that kind of perception and belief. So that's why you see mostly when there is an option of sending one or two kids to school, they will mostly pick the boy and leave the girl because normally the girl will always marry off in no time.
How's that received, Nachaida? I'm just thinking that is such a challenge, me hearing you saying that, you know, that's the belief system. Presumably, it's gone through the generations. That's what their parents did as well. And how is your training received when you're trying to explain to them that I know it's what you believe in, and I know it's how maybe your ancestors have believed as well, but we know that it's not going to do any good. How do you manage that?
Well, you get that a lot during the sensitizations because they will tell you, my great grandmother did it, my mother did this, like all my
Mhm.
generation did it. That. So that's why during our sensitizations, we try to make them see why we're discouraging it. For instance, if these girls get married early, they suffer risks of okay, not going to school, not being educated, being abused in their homes. They lose their dreams, they lose their focus. We cite examples with the girl child that are successful in the society, that are allowed to go to school and they're helping their families. We look for respectable people within the community. We identify like male champions that have championed the cause of sending their children, their girls to school, and they have become successful. So we use those to cite an example. We tell them like the negative impacts, like what is it called? Like you realize that girls who get married early sometimes they suffer fistula issues and all that, and these are caused by being getting married early. And you realize that some people might even know a female that suffers that. And
Mhm.
they will say, I know somebody like that. And most times when it happens, the husband will have to send her back. We tell them that when these girls marry, at the end of the day, they become liabilities to their husbands. They maltreat them and then they treat them badly because they are not productive in any way. They are not contributing anything to the homes. So we show them the negative sides and try to compare and contrast with others that have actually gone through that route and have succeeded. And because we're using, you will realize in communities or in the villages, you realize there are people, there are men that are educated, that knows the impact of sending their girls to school. So we use them to cite an example. We bring them during these sensitization sessions to like inform them. I have one man that was like sensitizing the men, and he was like him, he have about 5 kids, and he sent all of them to school. And most of them are boys. He have only one girl among the 5 kids. And these men, they are successful, they have jobs, but they don't even look back because they have their own responsibilities they are focusing on. If he needs anything or he have any issue or he have maybe he's sick or something, the first person he calls is his daughter, who is doing well also in her field of endeavor. He said, what would have happened if he didn't train this girl? It would be as if you don't have any child. So we use this kind of people to like enlighten them, to show them why they need to send these girls to school. Because most of the time they feel, okay, it's a mindset that you need to like set out of their heads. Okay, girls are just meant to end in the kitchen. They are just meant to marry. They are just for the pleasures of the men and all those things. So
Mhm.
you have to show them why they should encourage these girls to go to school. So that's what we try to do in order to bridge the gap.
And it sounds, listening to you, that you're raising awareness and you've had some really good impact. I'm guessing as well that what must also be a real struggle is when you're saying that communities are so poor. Um, the pulling the other way is that they're so poor and maybe they can't afford to go and do some of the things that you're teaching them to do. Sounds incredibly complex. So, thinking about the work that you do, my last question, I guess, is there any messages or anything that you want to, this is an opportunity to tell anybody, any messages that you think would be helpful for hopefully the world to hear? Because we were saying, I'm hoping that people are listening to this from, across Canada and Australia and Africa or wherever else. Is there anything else that you'd want people to know about your work?
Well, first of all, let me try to clarify that issue you just mentioned about. Okay. First of all, it's not all of them that are marrying the girls because they cannot afford to take them to school. Some of them, they just feel it's a waste sending these children to school. Some of them sincerely they will tell you why they want to marry them off is because they cannot afford it. So you
Hmm.
see, in this case, we can actually say, okay, what if you get support? Will you allow them go to school? They will tell you yes. Some of them they can actually afford it, but they don't feel the need to do it. We have like village champions that are well to do. And even in these villages, you find educated people, though. You find even professors, people that have actually gone far academically and all those things. We have people that are farmers, they are wealthy and they are all that, right? So it's not all of them that don't send the children to school because they can't afford it. No. Some of them, they just feel there is no need for it because what can a girl child do? So maybe I needed to like clarify that.
No, thank
Nachaida,
you for
does
that. That's really helpful.
and is that a legality issue in Nigeria where it's illegal? Because the same issue we heard from again a few colleagues in Kenya, and they said no, in Kenya it's illegal, and people, the parents can go to jail for it. Is that the same in Nigeria? And if not, if it isn't, if there's no law against it, I'm hearing you say that education is pretty much the best you can do. Is that correct?
In my line of work, no, 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 no. As a matter of fact, education is just a support that we inculcate. Like my sector, like the is mainly protection, protecting them from this violence. How do we make them not to encounter this violence? Because you find among maybe like 20 survivors, maybe it's just like two that needs education. The others, they need other services. Maybe they need counseling services. Maybe they need to like be protected from this abuse and all those and all that. So educational sector is just a sector that we work with. They are not even part of our main project. Our main work is like protecting these girls from violence, taking them out of the abuse and ensuring that they don't even go back to it. Like, right, education is just one branch, one arm of it,
I
but our
think that
main work is protection.
I think Nacheda, I maybe I didn't ask the question as clearly as I could. My question was around are there laws in Nigeria protecting young girls against early marriage? Is it illegal to marry a girl of 13 in Nigeria?
Well, I don't I don't I can't say if it's in our constitution and maybe it's not just being followed. But you realize that on a daily basis this happens and parents are not jailed for it. They are not nobody sues them for it. The highest that will happen is a girl wants to like, okay. But then if the girl feels the need to like take the child and take the parents to like the law enforcement agencies, then I think they can take up the matter. But in a situation where the girl doesn't want to like press charges, and the issue is, I think it's illegal, but only if the girls come out. In like some developed countries, on hearing it, even probably without the child reporting this issue,
Mm-hmm.
they can step
Right.
in. But in Nigeria, the child has to like report it. And some of the challenges we have here is a lot of the girls don't even know their rights. They don't know that it's even illegal to marry
Mm.
off a child. It's actually illegal in Nigeria to marry off a girl that is below 18. But the
Okay.
thing is, the children being married off are not even aware of it.
Okay,
They
that's
are
what
not
I wanted
aware of.
to, yeah, that's what I wanted to understand because you're right. In other countries, it's not up to a minor to take up the fight against an injustice done to them. You're saying in Nigeria, the girl would have to go to the police.
Yes.
I see. Okay.
Mm.
Okay, that's and so your work is I hear what you're saying is you try to work with families to educate them to there's another concept you used. I forget how you explained it, but you try to work with them to explain to them why it's better for the girls to go to school, and so on. Can you tell us about, before kind of wrapping up with Tracy's question, can you tell us more about, because I think you've mentioned it several times, the gender-based violence. What are the types of, you talked, I think, in the beginning a little bit about it. Can you expand more about gender-based violence on underage girls, and how you handle that, especially in the small villages? And is that also a cultural issue that you come up against?
Sometimes it's a cultural issue, but sometimes it's not. And when we say gender-based violence, like I explained, it has to do with violence perpetrated against a person's will because of their gender. And like I said, we focus on the girls, right, that are minors, that's below the age of 18, below consensual, right? So, normally these cases, because is GBV naturally differs from child protection. We have two arms of protection. We have GBV and we have child protection. So child protection, you can identify a case. You can see a child experiencing abuse and you can step in. That's in the non-governmental terms, right? But GBV, they have to come to you. So they have to come and meet you and open up to you. So this type of violence,
What
we
does
have like
GBV stand for, Nachaida? Sorry, what does GBV stand for?
gender-based violence.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Apologies.
Yes. So they have to come and meet you and like explain. It's possible a girl was raped. And because of the cultural situation around, you realize that most parents have become their kids. Like kids can be molested in the last year they molested with their homes. They hardly confide in their parents. So that's why we call it kids. We create a conducive atmosphere and we allow them to come and share with us to see how they can. Yes.
I can't.
Sorry, we lost you for a bit. Go ahead, Nachaida. Apologies.
Okay, sorry about that, right? Like I said, child protection and GBV. Child protection, you can identify the case as a caseworker or as a field staff, while GBV, they have to come and meet you with their issues. So it could be rape, a child could be raped, and like I said, because of the cultural issue we have around here, we hardly have bonds with our parents. Our parents are always like, there's this fear we have of our parents, and you realize something can happen to us, and the last point of call or contact is our parents. So our safe space help to bridge that gap between parents and children. So sometimes if they can't meet the parents and explain all those issues, they come to us, right? It could be rape, it could be physical assault, maybe somebody like did that to a girl. And it has to be, is GBV, because it can only be perpetrated against a child because of her gender, because she is a girl, right? It cannot just be any form of violence. For instance, when we say child beating a child, it's common to beat a child here or to spank a child, right? In foreign countries or Western countries, I don't think that's like allowed. But here, you can beat a child. So it's not GBV because they are beating the child not because of the child's gender. They are beating the child because he's a child and he misbehaves, right? So it has to be because of their gender. For instance, rape is a gender issue. A man can, maybe boys can be raped too, but mostly it has to be a man that will rape a female, right? So that's early marriage or forced marriage. Why are they marrying her? Because she's a girl child. So all those things, because you hardly see them forcing a boy or a male to marry. In fact, a male child can stay in his parents' house even up to 40 years, nobody is disturbing him. But a girl child at the age of 23, 24, 25, they're already telling you, you have to get married, you are old, you are this, you're that. So forced marriage and early marriage is a gender issue that we feel affects girls and all those things. So we haven't had lots of cases pertaining female genital mutilation, but it's also a GBV issue because it's only done to females and all those things. So when we say GBV, it's mainly those violence that can only be perpetrated on an individual because of her gender, because she is a girl, right? Like domestic violence, a man beating up his wife is a GBV issue. So yeah, I don't know if I missed any other question you asked.
No, you did perfect. And again, we're asking these questions given it's the first time we're speaking with someone from Nigeria, so we're curious. Um, uh, the other issues, and maybe you can tell us a little bit about, you spoke about, so GBV is your field of specialty. What are the other types of abuse that fall under the, and I hesitate to ask this because you said, yes, there's a law in Nigeria, but it depends if you're in the capital versus, and not, then even then it's not always followed. But what are the criteria for child abuse in Nigeria? I mean, here in Canada, it's fairly clear. Child abuse is considered when a child is physically hurt, emotionally hurt, sexually hurt. What is it do you have those classifications in Nigeria?
Well, interestingly here, you cannot compare those kind of laws that you have to ours. Because there is an issue. I know I used to watch a lot of movies, lots of foreign movies, because I haven't been outside the country, by the way. So I get the knowledge I have from Western world through their movies. Maybe a parent can just do something to a child and you call 911 and 911 will just pull up. I don't know if in real life it happens, but it's usually funny to us here. Because here, your parents can beat the hell out of you. You have injuries on your body. You will call, maybe you go and report to the police. You end up receiving beating at the police station. Because we have this discipline within us. Like, we were brought up in our culture. It supports discipline a lot. So they can hear what you did. For instance, now you stole meat, or maybe your mother or your dad is talking to you, and then you talked back at them or you shouted at them, and then they beat you, and then you report to maybe an uncle or an auntie. They will beat you on it again. They will still beat you for saying it to them. I don't know if you can relate, right? So there are certain cases they don't take serious. It's not a serious issue here, because at the end of the day, everybody reports to will even spank you on it. And we have this culture, we say a child doesn't belong to just one person. A child is everybody's child. Your neighbor can discipline your child, right? So because of these cultural differences, we have these laws. Like I said, in theory, a child below 18, there are certain things we don't expect. We don't expect them to be married against their will. We don't expect them to be subjected to certain kind of labor. We don't do this thing. But you walk around our streets, you see a boy of 5, 6, 7 years walking on the streets, not in school. In Western countries, it might be an offense. But in our country, in fact, you see a lot of them when you come around here. You realize that the child cannot even converse with you outside his local language, because we don't have a common language here. We have different languages, right? So you realize that the child has not been in school at all and he's hawking on the streets, or she's hawking on the streets, and it's normal. So I think, so it's not that there are no laws against it. Child labor is not supported by our constitution. But do the government do anything about these children roaming the streets? We have this issue that like troubles us a lot in the north. I don't know what it's called, but it's like almajiris, right? This almajiri issue, you see a parent give birth. It normally happens in the northern part of Nigeria. You give birth to a child, and then you send the child to another state to a religious teacher to like train the child. The parents don't check the well-being of the child. They don't check anything. And you see in fact, every street, you might end up seeing that center in every street where these children, they are being taught how to recite religious hymns and all those things. And then every morning they are sent out to go and beg. That's their role. They go and beg from house to house. They face different kinds of humiliations and molestations in the and these children grow up into it. Like they spend like years, maybe 10 or even more than 10 years. I think in Western countries, it will be a serious crime. But in our countries, it happens and nobody says anything about it. So I don't, Nigerian laws is not something they can tell you yes or no. It's best explained than actually answered. It's not a yes or no issue. So I don't know if you have a perspective of what you're asking.
No, you did.
I think that's been really helpful.
You did
Yeah.
an excellent job explaining it. It almost sounds to me, Nachaida, that yeah, there are laws, but it's up to the locals to decide whether they're going to follow them. And there are no consequences
Yes.
for not following them. Is that accurate?
Yes, it's very accurate.
I think you said at the beginning, there's the theory there, but whether they practice
Yeah,
it is a different issue. Now I understand why.
exactly.
Well, I don't know, Avi, if you've got anything. I mean, I could genuinely sit and
There's
listen to
so
you all
much.
day.
I
It's
know this.
fascinating. And maybe, who knows, maybe we could talk to you again. But I think for now, that has just been, well, so enlightening, so interesting. And a huge thank you, Nachaida, for giving us your time and giving us some insight into the country that you work in, the work that you do, and clearly a passionate worker. Again, it strikes me so much how we talk to social workers around the world, and you can just feel the warmth coming through the screen. And to do the job that you do, the smile, the passion, all of that comes through in spades. So a huge thank you.
Thank you so much, Ma. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Nachaida, for your time and your story.
Thank